Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have Andy Duncan, the CEO of Boardwalktech Software. Boardwalk trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol BWLK and in the US under BWLK-F. The company is trading at $1.06 with roughly 42 million shares outstanding, or about a $44 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, great. Thanks, Trevor. Good to have Andy Duncan from Boardwalk here with us today. Andy, you're somewhat of a new story to Trevor and I, and happy you can join us today to sort of introduce the company to our subscriber base. So I understand you have a presentation. I'm just going to hand it right over to you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Trevor. It's my honor to be here and talk to everybody. Let me go ahead and get started. We'll get through the forward-looking statement and kind of dig right in, Paul. Also look forward to any questions that anyone has at the end of the presentation. So I'm happy to hang out as long as we need to. So Boardwalk is based in Silicon Valley. We also have an operation in Mumbai, India, and we are a enterprise information management company. Today, I believe we've got 24 of the Fortune 500 as customers, and we are a SaaS business. We we license a technology, again, in a SaaS model that is what we call our digital ledger low-code application platform. And what does that really mean? Well, our business is pretty simple. When you walk into any large company today, these large companies have spent a lot of money on their big systems of record, like Oracle and SAP and Salesforce.com. Yet when you peel the onion back, most of these companies are still doing a tremendous amount of the work in Microsoft Excel. And you ask yourself, why is Excel so prevalent after all these years? Why is it still the _1 application that's used across the business worldwide? And the reason is that as our enterprises and an enterprise information worker's life has become more complicated, information across these enterprises is spread out all over the place. And part of a person's job to make a decision is to go find that information and marry it together with other information so that they can get to a decision. And it's really hard because they don't have a place to put all that data. And so what do they do? But they use Microsoft Excel to bring all of the data in, and they line it up in rows and columns. And then before you know it, they start writing formulas against the information that's in these spreadsheets. And before you know it, they start emailing these spreadsheets around. And before you know it, these companies are making $100 million decisions every day based upon the information in these Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. So Boardwalk's mission and the digital ledger platform that Boardwalk licenses is all about helping companies to automate those manually based Excel processes that are so prevalent throughout the enterprise. And we really believe that it's the last mile of kind of digital transformation for these companies. So again, software as a service model, 63% of our revenue comes from multi-year annual recurring licenses since 2018. We have a pipeline. I mean, despite the COVID, and interestingly enough, people are working remotely. They have a real need to share information. It's exactly what we do. And so our pipeline continues to grow. Last year at this time, the pipeline was about 4 million. It's now 8, and we continue to see really nice movement on that. In fact, we've closed some really nice deals this past quarter that I'll get into to be able to really show how this pipeline is growing and we're closing. From an operational standpoint, we've got really great operational leverage. This is an 85% plus gross margin business. We continue to drive toward profitability as an organization. We are a quarter or two away from EBITDA positive. And we did a financing at the end of January, beginning of March, excuse me. We raised a little over 11 million Canadian. With those funds, we not only have got money in the bank and a great runway to get us to profitability and beyond and really allow us to grow the business, but we also paid off all of the debt that we had on the company. So when you look at our balance sheet as of 3/31, we effectively and awfully proud of that. So it's been a pretty monumental quarter for us, and we achieved some real significant things this past quarter. But let's talk about the digital ledger and kind of what it's all about. You know, finding resources to do and to build applications is hard. There's a real shortage of people out there. And so getting applications kind of converted over into a digital environment is difficult. So there's a lot of activity right now around what we call kind of a low-code application platform environment, which is a easier, simpler way with a lot of tools that allow you to be able to build applications in this whole digital transformation that companies are working on right now. And so the Boardwalk Digital Ledger is a low-code application platform. It allows people to work at the same time on the same data, make changes. It's what we call a single version of the truth. And it allows you to be able to very rapidly convert these spreadsheet processes into kind of an automated digital environment. So what does that really look like? So if you look here on the left-hand side of the screen, this is the current environment in most companies. So remember earlier when I talked about how, you know, we'd walk in and we sit down with a large organization and we say, tell us about your infrastructure. Tell us how you're actually exchanging information. And they say, we've got Salesforce and ServiceNow and Oracle and SAP and this and that, and it's all connected together, but yet everybody's still using these spreadsheets. And again, the problem with the spreadsheets is once you get past 2 or 3 people and you start emailing these spreadsheets around, who's got the last version, who made the last change, what's happening with this, what's happening with that, and it is chaos. And we believe that most companies today, most large companies have about 100 of these kind of mission critical spreadsheet applications that are running in a manual environment in the enterprise. So what we do is we take this beloved spreadsheet and through this low code application platform and a single schema environment, we move it into the Boardwalk Digital Ledger. And we effectively create this single version of the truth, no matter how big the spreadsheet or workbooks are, no matter how many people are actually exchanging data, it all gets very simply loaded up into the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform. Once it's in there, we can then have someone connect from their local spreadsheet on their desktop. They can make a change just like normal. We don't change Excel at all. But when they're ready to share that change, instead of emailing the spreadsheet around, they simply hit submit refresh. And that brings the transaction into the digital ledger. So now we have a record of it. It's immutable. We've got complete history of everything that's happened all the way down to the cell level so that party A can move data into the digital ledger and party B then can say, hey, let me refresh my spreadsheet and see if there's any changes that are coming in. So from a practical perspective, we have customers like Apple Computer. And Apple communicates with their suppliers utilizing the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform. So imagine if you were in Cupertino, California as a product manager for, call it the cameras on an iPhone, and you had 40 suppliers and you were communicating with them on these spreadsheets saying, okay, I need to know, can you get me 1 million cameras to our Singapore facility or to this contract manufacturer? What about the price? What about this? And all of that information before and the exchange of that data looked like this, messy fruit salad spreadsheets all over the place. Now they submit their change in here. The supplier that could be in Hong Kong or Singapore or the Netherlands, it doesn't matter, refreshes and goes, oh yeah, let me respond. They submit it back into the digital ledger. We've got a complete historical record. And now everybody sees the data at the same time, and it's a single version of the truth, which means that we've got this historical record. We always talk about the fact that you can run, but you can't hide because the data is always there. We can always see what the last, all of the changes all the way back to the beginning. And therefore, this allows people to be able to collaborate, exchange data securely, and make decisions faster. And making those decisions faster for the business is key. So we look at kind of what we do with Boardwalk is there's three core things that we provide. It's a collaboration tool that allows people to be able to work real time while remote. It's an efficiency tool that allows people to reduce the cost of managing this information. And it's an insight tool, because the key here is if you can make a decision faster, you're going to be able to, fill an order faster, increase revenue, improve your margins. That's what it's all about, making a decision faster. So the problem in the enterprise is that while these companies have spent all this money on this transactional systems of record, 80% of the data is still unstructured. And an unstructured piece of data is like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. No one knows what's in it other than the guy that saw it last. And so we really focus in talking to these enterprises about how are you going to solve the problem of your unstructured data? How are you going to move these spreadsheets into a digital environment? Let us show you how you do that. And we sincerely believe that moving these spreadsheets into a digital environment, connecting them, securing them, getting them compliant is kind of the last mile of digital transformation for the enterprise. And it is a huge problem and a really big opportunity. So again, some of the examples of unstructured data, PDFs, HTMLs, even emails that are coming in or tweets, right? As an information worker, you're sitting at your desk and you're working for a Fortune 500 company, and you got stuff coming at you all day long from every corner of the world in all these different data formats, and you don't have a way of being able to manage it. And so Boardwalk and our platform helps you organize and get control over all of this unstructured data. And kind of the end result of this is that it allows you to be able to make a decision faster. So remember, knowledge is power. Faster you can get the information, the faster you can make a decision. That decision that's faster is going to improve the business results through either increased sales, improved margins. So when we, sit down with a large enterprise, we really kind of paint the picture that the Boardwalk Digital Ledger is a critical component to the enterprise stack. And again, while they may have spent a lot of money on Oracle and SAP and Salesforce and IBM, and we're not saying that those are bad, they do all the things that they're supposed to do. What we worry about in the area that we focus on for the enterprise is all of the unstructured data. So structured data sitting in an Oracle database or an SAP system. Unstructured data is all the stuff that flows at the information worker all day. And most of that is frankly in Microsoft Excel. So when we kind of load up our digital ledger, we do this with a strategy of we're going to help you to move all of this unstructured data into the Boardwalk Digital Ledger so that you've got a method of being able to make these decisions faster, to organize your data, to search that information, and really manage all of the unstructured data. So we see ourselves as we plug into an enterprise stack, a very important component, if not just as important as some of these big structured systems of record. So this digital ledger right here that we install in, or that we run as a service for the enterprise, that we connect into those other systems of record, we charge an annual, SaaS fee, if you will, for use of that digital ledger. And then as we layer on additional applications, then we charge per application. So this is very much a land and expand strategy into the enterprise. Some of the kind of talking points about why the enterprises are adopting our solution: again, increased revenue, improved customer satisfaction. Compliance and auditability is a huge factor here, everybody. I got to tell you that these spreadsheets are basically uncontrolled. No one knows what's in them. The IT departments of these organizations do not know the content of this. And there's a lot of movement right now, specifically in the financial services industry, to get control of that last mile of all of these spreadsheets, that so that we can get them into compliance. We can audit these spreadsheets, that we know what's sitting in those spreadsheets. And then, of course, taking real-time action on the information that you're flowing with regard to this unstructured data, now that you've got control over it. And then, of course, rapid collaboration and alignment. So some of our customers today, I think the investors that know us, they really get pretty excited when they see our customer list, which is just a partial customer list. But we've been very successful, landing large customers in this kind of land and expand strategy. And I will say that just over the past 3 months, we've seen such an increase in the excitement and enthusiasm around, kind of what Boardwalk is doing, and the real need to automate and get into compliance a lot of these spreadsheets. Again, that's evidenced by some recent deals that we've closed, including Estee Lauder, including Mars. And one of the companies that I really like to talk about is Ernst & Young. We are so proud of the relationship that we have and the partnership that we have with Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young, they do technology and security audits for governments and large customers. And for them to license our technology and actually have us part of their tax technology framework, which is their #1 business around the world, we're very proud that they utilize the Boardwalk Digital Ledger to manage information. Think of tax, think of audit. When somebody shows up to do an audit for your company and they've got 8 people and they're going to be in your conference room for a month, you know what they're using to collect all the data? Microsoft Excel. Well, think of the value that Boardwalk provides to a company like EY, where you not only can automate the exchange of information and the capture of information in these spreadsheets, but have a complete historical record of everything that's going on. Another interesting client here is the Defense Logistics Agency in the United States. We signed a deal with them, I think it was in September, and we're actually in the middle of building out a track and trace system for food that gets delivered to all of the military installations around the world. And it's a fascinating project financed by the U.S. government and the Defense Logistics Agency. And there's a tremendous opportunity going forward to track more things than just food. But that project alone is going to be what we think is a very valuable project and an application for us that we're right in the middle of building for them. And that's being all built, by the way, on the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform. So what our clients use us for are kind of different things. We talked about Estee Lauder, and they're managing packaging with our application. That's the first application that we're building with them. EY for tax planning, Coca-Cola for trade and procurement and spend management, HCL, one of our great partners and customers, for deal management. So every time that they price a deal, it goes all the way through the Boardwalk system. And then Verizon for supply chain management. I believe we've got 3 or 4 different applications. We continue to ramp and build additional applications for Verizon, causing a lot of, or creating a lot of value for them. They, as you know, they're the #1 wireless carrier in the United States. And in fact, they use our technology and our platform to connect to Apple to do order fulfillment when they need additional products that are Apple products. So we're excited about the fact that we've got 2 customers that both came on independently and are using our platform to collaborate and connect with each other. So a couple of case studies here. This happens to be with an apparel company. Remember, I talked about the land and expand strategy that we have. And so what you see here is that these applications, this is what we call an application, and we charge anywhere from kind of $50,000 to $100,000 per year per application. So this is an application, seasonal planning or production planning or product order generation. So this particular customer was doing everything in spreadsheets. We came in and said, we want to automate all of this for you. They said, let's get started. And so these are the 5 applications that we've built so far for them. Some are integrated, some are not. And then the rest of these in white are the ones that are planned for the future, where we will be delivering solutions for them as needed for things like demand planning, managing their raw material costs. Interesting thing here, first year savings, 1.3 million, a 5x ROI. Again, significant cost savings and ROI for them. Next case study is for a great customer that we have called onsemi. onsemi, I think we've done 4 or 5 applications for them. The last one that we did for them, this application's about a year old, is they get about 25 RFP, RFQs a day in. And, these RFP, RFQs can be kind of, big, hairy spreadsheets with what we call a BOM that says, can you show me the cost for each of these components? And it would take onsemi about 7 days on average to respond to a typical RFP, because it had to go through a whole bunch of layers, workflow, people had to approve this, pricing had to be done for that. By automating it on the Boardwalk digital ledger platform, we reduced the average response time down to about 2 days. What happens when you reduce the response time down on an RFP, RFQ is that you win more deals, because the faster you can respond, the higher close rate you have. And so we actually are now seeing with onsemi a 15 to 20% increased sales conversion, all because of the automation and all because they can collaborate and communicate on the Boardwalk digital ledger platform and respond faster. What does that mean from a money standpoint for onsemi? Well, first year savings, 6x ROI, 1.8 million, but that does not count the ancillary value that they get from this increased sales conversion. So, Boardwalk and the platform of moving a lot of this manual stuff into an automated fashion is really valuable. So some of our financial highlights before we get into some of the Q&A, I hope I've stirred a bunch of questions here. We've got about 3.5 million of recurring annual revenue that will flow into next year. That's actually will be a little bit higher than that. Again, this past couple of quarters, we've really been working to try and get to profitability. So we'll see that very soon. 63% of our revenue is coming from this new SaaS model that we put in place in 2018. Current pipeline over 8 million and building. And again, gross margin of 85%. It's really quite an interesting business and can be quite valuable as we scale. Again, the land and expand strategy, super important to us. We bring on new customers, lots of times kind of a first project where the customer will sign a contract with us. They say, come in, prove yourself. We'll charge them anywhere from, call it $100,000 to $150,000. That's a combination of recurring license revenue and some services to get the application up and running. Once they get it up and running, then they go, wow, this is great. I could really use you guys over here and over here and over here. And that's how we start to grow. Recent customer that we just signed, we implemented the first application in 6 weeks. Before we had it done, they were back saying, okay, I want to use you now over here. I'm really starting to understand the value of what Boardwalk can do for me. And so we should be signing this second project, which again will be another, call it $100,000 for them. And we believe that there's probably 10 of these kind of immediate opportunities that we can convert into this kind of recurring revenue stream from this particular customer. So, when you kind of look at the capital structure of the company, this share price is a little, this slide's a couple days old. We were at 89 cents a few days ago, and I think we're at $1.05 today or something. Market cap, of course, going up because of the share price, but you'll look here, cash balance. This is after both the funding event that we had in February and also the fact that we paid off our debt, 42 million in common shares sitting out there, and management's got a pretty nice piece of ownership here. We're very motivated. Executive team, we're all very senior guys. We've done this before. Charlie was the CFO of Vixis, another company, and a couple of other companies that were actually on both the TSX-V and the TSX. So we've got a lot of history, and again, we're not a 28-year-old MBA that's wet behind the ears. We're senior guys that have all done this before, and we're really excited about the future of where we're going. So the investment opportunity highlights before we get into the Q&A. It's a unique, patented, sustainable, and competitive platform solution. So we are a platform. It is land and expand. We're all about recurring revenue. We're all about SaaS. We're rapid development. So it takes us anywhere from kind of 4 to 6 weeks to deliver an application. Once it gets in, it's sticky. The enterprises are just the past 3 months, it's been an amazing increase in activity for us, where people are really starting to see, as we're kind of coming out of the COVID, they're saying, how do I morph and how do I move my company to being more digital? I got it. I got slapped with this COVID where everybody was off-site. We had a heck of a time collaborating on this stuff and sharing data. How can I automate that? How can I make it better? And that's what Boardwalk is all about. Again, growing recurring revenue. Just love that recurring revenue model. And, again, significant operating leverage. So we really are poised, guys, for, I think, quite a kind of our fiscal year just ended yesterday. So we're now into our fiscal 2022. And we think that there's a heck of a lot of upside and a lot of value going forward. So Paul, I will now kind of hand it back over to you, and very happy to answer any questions that anybody may have or any comments that you have, Paul. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. At this point, I want to remind everybody that's listening, if you got some questions you want me to ask Andrew, just feel free to use the chat function, and I'll do my best to make sure Andrew gets a question. Andrew, I didn't really see it in the presentation, but maybe, generally, I can imagine this is a pretty big addressable market, but can you put some numbers around what sort of size market you're really going after?
Sure. Paul, it's a funny thing, but you can hardly put a number on this market. And the reason is this: there's 1.3 billion Microsoft Excel users in the world. It is the #1 application in the world. And if you think about the PC industry, by the way, right? So, why was the PC industry founded? Well, it was because people did not want to stand in line or put their name in to go and work on a shared server to run a formula based upon what they wanted. They wanted to do it on their own on the desktop. That's how the PC industry was born. You know what the first application ever that was on a PC? VisiCalc. You know what VisiCalc was? The first spreadsheet application. So things don't change, right? So the total addressable market is effectively unlimited here. But what does that mean for Boardwalk? Like I'm not telling you that we're going to be this $1 trillion company. I am about, stepping one step at a time, focused and execution. What does that mean? I'm working to get to 25 million in revenue, then I'm going to go to 50 million in revenue, then I'm going to go to 100 million in revenue. How am I going to do that? I break it all the way back down to each customer. Each customer today has got about 100 of these kind of mission critical spreadsheet applications that need to be converted into a digital environment. We believe that the Boardwalk platform is the best way for them to do that with our unique technology. If I can get just 10 of those applications converted, and I'm getting an average of, call it $100,000 a year per application, I've got $1 million of recurring revenue coming from that large enterprise with a really big ROI, by the way, for that large enterprise. If I can do that and I can get to 25 or 50 major customers, you can do the math and say 50 major customers, $100 or $50 million in recurring revenue. I get to 100, it's $100 million of recurring revenue. And I think that basically the sky is the limit. But again, we got to execute. And that's what this is all about. Let's get to 25, let's get to 50, let's get to 100.
Give us a sense of your competition. Who you up against, and why you guys and not them?
Yeah, really good question. You know, the biggest hurdle that we always have when we go into an enterprise sale is it's kind of a two-pronged sale, right? First of all, you got to sell the business. And those are most of the time the easy guys to sell, right? Because somebody sees this. And I mean, we're literally walk in and we'll say, okay, show us a spreadsheet that you use. And we'll come back a week later and we'll show now that spreadsheet running in Boardwalk. And they go, this is incredible. Where have you guys been? Why haven't I heard of you? So we got to sell the business, which is pretty easy. The IT guys we've got to sell because the IT guys have got a bunch of different ways in which they can solve the problem. This is the competition, right? So if you were to ask any kind of IT professional, how do I take a spreadsheet, process it, and digitize it? They could go build an application from scratch. And they can literally get 15 guys in India and spend 6 months and go do that with a SQL server backend and a web form front end. But the problem is that a lot of these spreadsheet applications have got, call it 1,000 formulas. They've been matured and used for 5 or 8 years, and they're beloved. I mean, it's like putting on your favorite, golf shoes or tennis shoes to go take a run, right? I mean, like people don't want to give it up. And so when we come in and we say you can automatically just convert them over and turn them into a digital environment, they love that. So to answer the question directly, there are many competitors out there. You can build an application from scratch. You can go to another low-code application platform. But if you do that, they have to actually go write the intelligence on the server, as opposed to we capture the intelligence that's already in the spreadsheet. So based upon that, we're faster, we're better, and we're much more user-friendly than that. But there's multiple ways that someone can go out and solve this problem. We just think and we know that we're better. And again, look at EY. EY could have gone out and done anything that they wanted to in order to solve the issue of managing work papers and tax information in these spreadsheets. They chose Boardwalk.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that you've got to get the IT guy sort of on side. Is that really the decision maker? Does it go above him? Give us a sense of a bit of your sales process and really who makes the ultimate decision.
Yeah. So it's funny that you asked that. This is my 5th company now in Silicon Valley, and the other 4 were basically in enterprise sales. When you walk in the front door, like walking in the front door of a restaurant, you kind of like, okay, is this a foo-foo restaurant or is this like a bar scene restaurant, right? Like you get the feel. When you walk in the front door of an enterprise, you figure out really quickly, is this an IT-driven organization or is it a sales-driven organization? Right. And one of them is going to have the power, but you got to sell the other one. The bottom line is that most of the time, we've got to go through both, and IT is certainly going to end up making the decision because we want them to do that. So our sales cycles will normally run anywhere from kind of 4 to 5 months. Historically, they used to run, 8, 9 months until we started to get some, great references and really kind of built that base of known customers that would be references for us, which is awesome. But yeah, look, we got to run the gauntlet of security and compliance and the data guy and all of that stuff. But once we do it, we always drive toward kind of an enterprise-wide license so that then we can go to any business unit in this land and expand strategy. So while it may take us a little bit more time, once we get it, we're in. So like Mars, it's a great company, right? #1 pet food manufacturer, which people don't know. #1 confectionery manufacturer. We have a worldwide contract with them, and we're rolling into different divisions. So when we walk in and say, hey, we can solve your problem, we're already approved by IT, we're already approved by security, the servers are up and running, it's simple for you, Mr. Business Guy. He says, great, where you been, let's go. So that's the way that it works.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys sell direct, or do you sell through, integrators or any partners? How do you sell?
So historically, we have been just direct sales. We have our own professional services team, which includes this group out of India. That's all of our own employees and our wholly owned subsidiary there. So the the margins are better than most if you're just running it out of, the US, because it's, the US resources are pretty expensive. So we kind of have a blended model, and we do that. I will say, however, that, and we think that you need to learn to sell it yourself before you can teach someone else to sell it. But we are entering into a new market, which is into the banking/financial services market. Mm-hmm. And that particular market that we're just entering into now, we're doing through partnerships. And so we've actually have a separate business unit now that's been set up to manage that particular industry. And we're doing all of that through partners. And the reason that we're doing it through partners is that, look, if I walk in the front door of Bank of America in North Carolina as Andy Duncan with Boardwalk, and here's my balance sheet, and I'm this, small TSX.V traded company, they're going to go, oh, no. But if I walk in there with a partner like an Infosys or a Capgemini, who already knows us, is a partner with us, and they say, we vouch for these guys and let's go do this together, we have a much higher probability of winning that deal. And that's exactly how we're going after these banks.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So I always envision a product like this can be disrupted to sort of the day-to-day life of a business. Give us a sense of how much of a disruption this would be to a client.
So we love the fact that we're disruptive. And we believe that that disruption comes with a lot of value that we deliver to the enterprise. Again, the examples that I showed on the ROI of 5 or 6 ROI, the land and expand where they keep coming back asking us to do more and do more, we think is of immense value. On the other side of disruption, though, Paul, one of the core values of Boardwalk is that for an end user, where, when I talk about an application that's doing something like demand planning or inventory management or something like that, where they're pulling all this data into these spreadsheets and then they're massaging it, trying to come up with a decision, and we automate all that for them. Mm-hmm. We do that using their beloved spreadsheets. And mm-hmm. so we're really not disruptive. Now, if the IT department decides to come in and say, hey, we've just licensed this new $1 million application, and you're going to have to transform everything over to a web form front end, and you're going to have to learn this whole new system. And when you want to make a change, as opposed to changing a formula on the fly, you're going to have to submit a request to IT for some guy to go rewrite the code, right? And you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to give this up. So we're not disruptive to the user, but the value that we provide is disruptive to the organization.
I understand that. Perfect. Okay, so obviously we're living in different times now with COVID. Give us a sense of COVID, how it's affected your operations, the day-to-day sort of workings in your business, but also obviously more people working from home and disruptions in terms of how other businesses operate. What's the opportunity or the downside from COVID?
Yeah, so we've done a pretty good job as a company kind of migrating to everybody work at home. And that's both in India and in the US, where we've got people that are spread around. Look, we were working from home a lot anyway, because, when you're, I'm in California, and, India's 11.5 or 12.5 hours ahead, depending upon, the time zone changes. And frankly, you're doing calls early in the morning and late at night anyway, so that didn't affect us. What I will say, and we're pretty resilient as a company. What I will say from a customer standpoint is that I think it really opened the eyes to a lot of these companies to say, we need better tools to be able to collaborate, and that's really good for Boardwalk. What was bad for Boardwalk is that a lot of these companies were so shocked, especially kind of in the first, kind of 0 to 6, 7 months of, wait a minute, we're not all in a conference room. We have to do this, virtually. And, who's getting the COVID, who's sick, who's what, that, kind of enterprises stopped making decisions. We had one particular contract that we were days from signing. And then once the COVID came at the end of March last year, they basically said, we're just stopping all contracts because we've got to assess where we are and what we're doing. And we're actually about to re-sign that particular contract now that they're coming back to work and they're coming out of the ether, if you will, with regard to COVID. So it's been a positive for us, where people are recognizing the need to collaborate in a virtual world. And I think, again, we're really starting to see over the past few months a real deep focus and interest in having companies close deals. Yeah.
Great. Now you touched on the management team a fair bit earlier in the presentation, but give us an idea of your board composition. What does your board of directors look like?
Sure. So we have 4 board members today. We have one independent board member whose name is Steve Bennett, who is a Silicon Valley kind of icon guy who not only is a professor at the San Jose State University, and Santa Clara University, but also has been on multiple both public and private boards and is a big investor in technology. And then the rest of the board is basically made up of myself, our founder and chief technology officer, Ravi Krishnan, and then Charlie Glavin, who is our CFO. So we have a heavy internal board, but it's, we'll be adding some additional board members as we get a little bit larger and certainly understand that the need to bring in kind of at least one more independent board member.
Fantastic. I can ask you one more question before we jump into listener questions, but you're a Silicon Valley company and you're listed on the TSX Venture Exchange. Maybe tell us how that happened. You got all sorts of VCs. I'm sure there's VCs crawling all up and down the streets where you live, but how'd you come up here to Canada?
Yeah, well, as I would say, that's kind of a 3-beer story, Paul. But the net is that we really are not a venture type of company for people to invest in, and the reason is that the venture guys are looking for that shiny penny that's going to be the next unicorn. And look, I'm a grinder, and the company is a grinder, and while we've got this awesome technology, and could we be a unicorn? Absolutely, we could be a unicorn. But I wasn't going to give up the core value of the technology to meet some venture funds' demands or desire. And I think if we had actually done a lot of venture funding, the company and the product would be a lot different than what it was today. I've really maintained this purity of both the product and the value of this platform that we built out. And I'm really proud of that, where we didn't let these guys get in and muck with it. We basically kept it pure. And did that mean that sometimes it was tough? Yeah, sometimes it was tough. But now it's sweet and pure. The answer of how we ended up on the TSX-V is I was raising a round of financing in 2017. I was referred to a group in Toronto. I met with them. They gave me a term sheet on the spot. And they said, here's $1 million, but what do you really want to do? And I said, I really want to raise 20 million. And they said, why don't you go out on the TSX-V? They introduced me to a bunch of people. It happened that the timing was right. And we said, boy, that would be great valuation. Let's go do it. And off we went. So that's how we ended up on the TSX-V. Never thought that we would be a public company, but I will say that I think it's been great for the organization. I think it brings this level of where you've got to do things as a public company as opposed to a private company, and you're held to a great standard being a public company. Right? Everything's in the open. Everybody knows. Here you are, and I think that that's actually great. It's kind of who I am. Fantastic.
So no major regrets.
No major regrets. Again, hey, look, we've got a goal. We're gonna, I'm hoping we'll graduate up to the TSX, and then who knows, we may just move on up to the NASDAQ when the time's right. I mean, it's all about revenue growth, and that's what I'm focused on, and all the rest of that, Paul, will follow.
Fantastic. Great to see that. I love it. Okay, let's jump on some questions here. Okay, we've got one. Can you break down the current sales pipeline by numbers of customers? Does the pipeline dollar amount represent ARR entry application per customer or total applications per customer? One
Sure.
question.
Yeah. Okay, great question. So the 8 million is a combination of both existing customers that are increasing the number of applications that they have, along with new customers that are in the pipeline. So the 8 million represents a combination of new customers and existing customers that are expanding. And it also represents a combination of the recurring license revenue that we would get for year one and the professional services that we would get for implementing that particular application. Most of the time, first year, the professional services and license split is around 60-40. So if we call it, we did a $100,000 deal, 60,000 of that would be license on a recurring basis, 40,000 would be professional services. And then of course, next year, that 60,000 in license might go, up to 80,000 or 100,000, depending upon the number of users and kind of how big it would grow to. And so that's the combination of what it is. We are really trying to focus in on that recurring revenue. The other thing I will say about the pipeline is that these are real deals, right? These are deals that we believe we've got a high probability of closing over the next 9 to 12 months. And based upon that, these are companies that we've met with. We've identified that there's an issue. We've identified that they want to move forward, and now we're just going through the process in order to get it done. So again, a year ago at this time, pipeline 4 million, now 8 million, and continuing to go. Look, Paul, the other thing about this, to be very honest, guys, is that we got to execute. You can have a pipeline that's sitting out there, and I can wave my arms and tell you how great it is. But the net is that we got to go heads down and we got to execute and get these companies to sign on the bottom line and deliver. And that's the net. I really don't believe that there's not a technology risk here with regard to Boardwalk. I mean, as evidenced by the customers that we have. This is all about us being able to execute and getting customers to sign and implement. And it's about getting that first project, that first application, proving ourselves, and then land and expand. And that takes a little bit of time. But the long-term value and the stickiness of this and that recurring revenue is there, and there's a real need.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Okay, what is your customer retention rate?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I will say that, we don't lose a lot of customers. We have lost some customers in the past. There's been a couple of instances where we've just flat out blown it. From a delivery standpoint. That was in the early days where, the platform wasn't as mature, our team wasn't as mature, but now, we've got a very high retention rate, and I don't know the exact numbers, but once we get in, guys, it's very sticky, and people rarely leave. If they do leave, it'll come from where maybe they're acquired by another company and the new acquiring company says, no, I'm not going to use that. You're going to have to use my systems. We've seen that a few times. We've also seen some companies that have strategically said, I'm going to get rid of spreadsheets forever out, and anything that's attached to that, they will, they'll move to some other system. Funny enough, we've had a couple of those where they've actually come back to us and said, gee, we made a mistake, and the users really want to continue to use your system. So, nothing's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, we've had some attrition, but it's not anything to worry about, and certainly not anything to concern about going forward.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Any competitors you really admire?
So, the company that I most admire is Salesforce.com. I think that Mark Benioff is an absolute stud, and I think that what he did to build that company is just incredible. And if you look at, kind of what they did, right? They started out with, let's go solve the problem with CRM. Let's move CRM into a hosted SaaS environment and take it away from Siebel. And the message was pretty simple, right? So you pay $1,800 a year per user on Siebel to maintain it. We'll give you a full system with no software for $800 a year per user. You get 100 users, you do the math, and you say, why wouldn't I do it? It's better technology, it's cheaper, and the users will like it better. So they started out with that, and now they've built this into platform. And they've got this recurring revenue that is just a roaring engine that is hard to break from. I hope someday we can be just like Salesforce.com, where you've got these partners that are doing the implementation. You've got this high margin of this recurring revenue stream. You've got a platform that's easy, low code to be able to automate a lot of these processes. And that is the company that I admire the most, Salesforce.com.
Gotcha, thank you. Okay, what is the timeline from customer contact to closing first application?
On average, it used to take us anywhere from 9 to 12 months. It's down now to 6 to 7 months, start to finish. The deal that we just closed with the large cosmetics company in New York was a little bit shorter time than that. And we're actually starting to see shorter times. Of course, the COVID has kind of thrown things in and thrown statistics like that into a little bit of a quagmire, if you will, because there are forces that have delayed closing that have nothing to do with a normal process of start to finish. But I would say 5 to 6 months on normal closing, some are quicker. And it's certainly down by about half of what it used to be.
Gotcha. Okay, next question is, I've seen the pipeline growing every quarter. What percentage of the pipeline do you see converting into contracts in 2021 and 2022?
I think realistically that we'll probably be able to convert somewhere between 50 and 60% of that pipeline into real deals in our fiscal year 22.
Great. Okay, your top 3 customers represent how much of your business?
I don't have the exact number, but I would say that our top 3 customers probably represent about 40% of our business.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly EY is right up there. I can't talk about the numbers, but yeah, they're there. And as we bring on more companies, as we continue to expand, I think we'll start to see that number trail down. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of our of the current fiscal year that we're in, as opposed to call it 40%, we might be more like 20 or 25% of the top 3 customers. Yeah.
Great. How many of your existing customers have been converted to your new pricing plan?
Again, a very good question. We still have some legacy customers that we did these kind of perpetual deals with that were sweetheart deals that you do at the time before we kind of converted over in 2018 with the new Salesforce and the new SaaS model. We've been able to convert now, as I said, about 63% of our revenue is currently from the new SaaS recurring revenue model. And we continue to work with those companies that have the perpetual models to convert them into the new SaaS environment by kind of, saying, hey, look, you should really upgrade the platform from where you were to upgrade it into this new. And we only sell the new version on a SaaS basis. Mm-hmm. So we're actively working on that, Paul.
Okay, great. I love this question. What were some of the lessons you learned from a past business that didn't make it?
That's a wonderful question. I give speeches to young entrepreneurs and sometimes get called into, business school classes to talk about this kind of stuff, and I love to talk about it. I think that technology has become much easier to develop and deliver than ever before. And it has a lot to do with the fact that we have the internet now, which is a stable environment to be able to communicate. In the old days, I remember we used to move data around in a 9600 baud modem, and your biggest problem wasn't the software, but it was keeping a good solid connection to be able to pass the data from point A to point B. And so you had all of these kind of more hardware networky things. And so now the software and being able to develop, software rapidly is easier. The bigger issue is the go-to-market. And this is where I think that I've struggled most, where a lot of companies struggle, where you listen to your customer, you build a product, and then you go to market based upon a theory of what you think the customer wants. And what you do is, you raise money through venture people or through friends and family, and then you climb the mountain. And you get up to the top of the mountain and you get kind of punched in the mouth because the customer says, "I'm not buying that. What are you talking about?" And you fall back down to the bottom. And then again, in a typical Silicon Valley world, you got to go raise money again from your venture guys, and then you climb back up the mountain with a new strategy. And then you get punched in the mouth, you come back down, and it's how many times can you get up and climb back up that mountain until you get the go-to-market right. And, everybody looks at these unicorns and go, "Oh my God, it's so easy. It's simple to build $1 billion business." These guys, frankly, get lucky. Okay. Now, is there some skill involved? Yeah. And are there some guys that have been kind of perennial winners where they just get it right the first or second time? Absolutely. But quite frankly, it's harder than people think. And climbing that mountain and getting punched and coming back down and regrouping and going back up again, the biggest issue is getting the go-to-market right. And that's where I think people don't spend as much time or effort. They're always about, "Oh, the technology's so cool." That's not the cool part. The cool part is when somebody says, "This solves a problem for me. This delivers an ROI for me. I want this," as opposed to, does it have dancing bears? Right.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. We'll wrap it up with this sort of last question, and then we'll give you a chance for a parting message. But as far as investors watching the business right now, what are the sort of key metrics that we should be watching out for to show that you're executing on your business plan?
So, I look back at this past year and talking with my CFO, Charlie, about this. We accomplished a lot, right? We got this big financing done. We paid off our debt. We are a quarter or two from profitability. We've gotten through the COVID. We got money on the balance sheet that's going to allow us to grow. We got a lot accomplished. What we needed to do better was to grow the top line. And quite frankly, we are poised now to really grow the top line. And I think that the metric that people should be watching would be two things: having us get to profitability and watching that top line grow. And, is it going to take a little bit of time? Yeah. I mean, we're just coming out of the COVID. We're starting to sign these contracts. It's, and with our model, you don't see revenue recognition, immediately, right? Because that's the beauty of the recurring stuff where it just loads up. And so I would say just keep watching for customer announcements and contracts, and watch that revenue growth.
And you may have just done it. What we like to do at this point is just give the presenter a chance to sort of give a parting message or any key takeaway that you want investors to walk away from. This is your chance to give that. Yeah.
So first, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming on and listening to the story. Building these companies is, it's a lot of hard work, but what it really takes is great patient investors that are willing to kind of hang with us and work with us. And I see several familiar names on the list here today. And I just say I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. I'm proud that you guys are investors. And I think if you continue to watch this space, you're going to see a lot of value being built. And I think it's going to be a very exciting next year for us. And I thank everybody for kind of listening to the story and getting to know us a little bit.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. If somebody wants more information, what's your website address?
So www.boardwalktech.com. You can always reach me at andy.duncan@boardwalktech.com, or you can go on our website and hit info@boardwalktech.com, and happy to answer or write through our investor website as well. So
awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Andy Duncan from Boardwalktech Software, symbol BWLK on the Venture Exchange. Andy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Paul, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.